The Grand Convergence was supposed to be boring. That was the general consensus across the press bays, diplomatic lounges and upper-tier viewing galleries of the Galactic Science Assembly. The Solari Hive called it a ceremonial swapping of polished stones. The K'Valrin said it was a mathematically inefficient method of academic publication. And the humans, well, no one was quite sure what they thought yet. They were new. Tier 2 status had only been granted a decade ago, barely out of their local cluster. Still reeling from their first contact, still prone to wearing individual names on fabric and smiling at inappropriate times. So when the human delegation requested a full-session announcement slot, one traditionally reserved for civilizations unveiling galactic-scale breakthroughs, the assembly chuckled. A few even groaned aloud when their name was read. "An infant species asking for a full-session slot?" murmured a Carulian scientist, their eyes narrowing as they adjusted their ocular implants. How quaint! Do they think they've unlocked the mysteries of the universe just by having a conversation with their first alien? "Bless their hearts," muttered the Vornak delegate, his voice dripping with condescension. He shook his head slowly, as if unsure whether to laugh or pity. "They must be so eager to prove themselves, asking for a full session slot. I'm sure it'll be fascinating, in the way a child's first steps are fascinating." There was a ripple of subdued laughter among the older delegates, as the less experienced species seemed to forget that such slots were reserved for truly monumental discoveries, like the K'Valrin's advancements in spatial engineering or the Varnathi's unification of the multidimensional quantum field. A full-session slot for a species that could barely make it off their homeworld's gravity well without assistance? The audacity! The sleek, telepathic Ilith did not laugh, but the collective mental image they projected was one of pure disbelief. Is it possible? Did they truly believe their discovery was worthy of such a slot? They exchanged quiet mental murmurs with the other nearby delegates. "In my experience, a species that is still figuring out how to communicate without error is unlikely to have made any significant breakthroughs." These were not hushed whispers shared between the delegates, meant for their own ears alone. No, the remarks were intended to be heard. Each sneering comment, every dismissive tone, was carefully projected toward the human delegation. It was not out of malice, at least not in the way the humans might have interpreted it, but a genuine belief that this was a grand waste of precious time. The humans, they were certain, would be embarrassed, awkwardly shuffle in their seats and withdraw, retreating into silence, too inexperienced to respond. Or worse, they might come to understand the extent of the mockery. In any case, the assembly would remain entertained by the show. But the human delegation did not respond with indignation. They sat, unmoved, calm and collected, unperturbed. The murmuring subsided as the lights dimmed for human presentation. The speaker stepped up to the central podium, a tall human woman with silver-streaked hair, wearing a simple blue uniform and an expression that said she was either about to reveal a breakthrough or troll the entire hall. "Esteemed delegates," she began, her voice calm but clear through the universal translator's neutral cadence. "I am Samantha Greaves, lead systems architect for the United Nations Stellar Engineering Corps." Polite nods, a few eye rolls. "We are here to report the successful creation of a mobile, stable, bi-singularity warp bridge." The room went silent, but only for a moment. Then came the murmurs, sharp, layered, rolling across the amphitheatre like a wave. The kind of sound you hear not when something is wrong, but when it's impossible. A few snickers rose from the K'Valrin gallery. Someone in the Solari Hive chittered openly, wings rattling in what their kind considered laughter. And then came the voice of Draveth Salkoon, the senior Varnathi delegate, whose species had authored unification of the multidimensional quantum field. They were the architect of countless transit systems and the mind behind much of the assembly's logistics. He sloshed forward from his seat, glowed an amused violet, and boomed through the translator. "Ah, yes, I'm sure this is one of those classic human situations where a rocket crashes into the ocean and you declare you've discovered water on the moon." The assembly chuckled, some politely, others with open disdain. The Ilith broadcast a ripple of amusement across the shared mental space. They must mean a proposed design. A concept, surely not, an actual working construct. The Vornak delegate, voice thick with sarcasm, leaned into their mic. Do you even understand what you're talking about? A warp bridge, fixed point, from a Tier 2 species that just stopped launching chemical firework tubes into orbit? A few laughed outright, but Greaves didn't flinch. She didn't raise her voice, didn't glance at her notes. She simply tilted her head slightly and said, anchored between two singularities of two micro-black holes, stabilized via synchronized spin inversion and negative mass lattice containment. The bridge structure is maintained by gravitational shear lock at both poles, with dynamic horizon shaping to prevent collapse. We achieved phase-locked insertion across 750 light-years in under 12 seconds, with full vessel integrity preserved. Return transit confirmed. No time dilation. No signal loss. Pilot recovered. Conscious. Speaking in real time. The laughter died mid-breath. It wasn't gradual. It snapped off, like a room full of beings collectively forgetting how to exhale. Mocking grins froze. The Varnathi scientist, still halfway through a sarcastic smirk, slowly closed his mouth as the implications settled in. The Solari delegates' gleaming cheating clicked involuntarily, their bioluminescent ridges dimming in alarm. Even the K. Valrin, who once folded neutron fields like origami, tilted their elongated head, processing. Jaws dropped, tendrils curled. No one laughed now, only the silence of realization. Then chaos. Dozens of delegates burst into simultaneous commentary. Some shouted, others chirped, some hissed, some communicated in pulse light through their drones. The amphitheatre glowed with 1,000 shades of disbelief. Impossible! Squawked High Mathematician Launtesh of the Jivari Continuum, his tendrils lashing the air. The last to attempt such a structure ruptured a fault line across 4 subspace layers, barked Chancellor Threk Vor of the Tharnox Dominion. She said stable and mobile. Do they want to kill us all? A pale, translucent Kalnari delegate whispered, visibly shaking. Greaves waited, completely unfazed. At last, from the second-tier balcony, an aged crystalline being stood slowly and raised an appendage. The room fell silent out of respect. Dr. Tashal of the Kavalrin Stellar Physics Guild, the speaker platform confirmed. Tashal spoke with the measured tones of a being who had taught physics for 4 centuries and watched far too many species kill themselves playing with math they didn't understand. Madam Greaves, forgive my bluntness, but what you have claimed violates multiple invariant constraints. It defies modelled space-time dynamics, energy conservation laws, and observational precedent. No one, not the Yalari, not the ancient Velour, not even the old Nistraxi, has successfully bridged 2 singularities without catastrophic destabilization. Not only is it impossible to even attempt it, suggests recklessness beyond comprehension. So I must ask, he leaned forward. Why? Greaves offered a slow smile. Because someone said it was impossible. Gasps, then silence again, this time colder. She reached down and tapped a console. A holographic projection appeared above the central stage, an elegant, shimmering structure linking 2 orbiting singularities, their accretion spirals glowing like golden halos around twin voids. Between them, a thread of warped space-time held impossibly taut, flickering with quiet purpose. It's active. It's been stable for 11 months. Location is classified, but we invite any neutral observers to see it with us. The delegates stared, speechless. Tashal tilted his crystalline head. You invite observers? She nodded. Absolutely. You said it couldn't be done. So naturally, we had to do that. 3 days later, aboard the UNS Calypso, the delegation disembarked in silence. The ship hovered in high orbit over Sector V4 Kappa, a region marked red on every navigational chart, a stellar zone so off-limits it didn't even have a formal name. The assembled delegation stepped into the observation deck like priests entering a heretic's temple. The Kavalrin floated silently beside the Solari, whose antennae were vibrating erratically. The Tharnox ambassador had its armor plating set to an aggressive red pulse. Even the normally expressionless orbital intellects of the Lernex conglomerate had sent a scout drone, which blinked rapidly in warning orange. And at the far end, the Varnathi delegation stood stiffly, their crystalline insignias dimmer than usual. They said nothing, but the tension in their posture, the tight angle of their cloaks, and the way they refused to look directly toward the viewport spoke volumes. Out the viewport, a single black hole loomed, silent, monstrous, absolute. Its event horizon sheared light into ghostly arcs. space itself bent in worship. But that wasn't what held their gaze. Suspended just beyond its devouring edge was the bridge, a filament of silver brilliance, impossibly thin and unnaturally stable. And within that bridge, through it, they could see the other side. Not in this system, not even in this star cluster, but in another black hole, where another end waited like an echo across the stars. It didn't collapse, it didn't destabilize, it hummed. Samantha Greaves stood at the rail, hands clasped behind her back. "Magnificent, isn't it?" she said softly. Dr. Tishal moved forward, slow and deliberate. "I do not understand. This cannot exist. Every existing model," Greaves said gently. "We built our own." "You rewrote the space-time field equations?" asked one of the orbital intellects. "No," said Greaves. "We bent them. The trick isn't defying physics, it's coaxing it. You ever try folding a paper fan without creasing the spine? It's all about where you let the tension go." "You speak of space-time like it's a child's toy," spat the Solari delegate. Greaves shrugged. "Every law is just a suggestion until someone proves it isn't. You folks set the boundaries. We got curious." Tishal turned to face her fully. "But why? Why take the risk? Why pursue something every other species abandoned?" "Because we're not built to back away from a challenge," she said simply. "You did this," Tishal said slowly, "because the universe said you can't." Greaves nodded. "It's who we are. You all built walls around the laws of physics. We brought ladders." "But the risk," the Solari ambassador began. "We calculated the risk," she interrupted. "We planned for failure. We failed 5 times. Lost 2 test gates. One of our engineers lost their leg to a gravity shear." "And you kept going?" "Yes." Silence. Then Vectil's drone emitted a harmonic buzz. "You are aware, human, that this changes everything. If this bridge is reproducible." "It is." "Then," Vectil continued, "your species has just unlocked direct gravitational anchoring, remote stellar transport, real-time FTL threading between dense mass systems. You've leapt a century ahead in logistics." Greaves smiled again. "You're starting to get it." The Varnathi delegation, who had laughed the loudest before, had gone oddly quiet. Their lead scientist, who had earlier cracked jokes about fireworks and falling rockets, now sat motionless, eyes fixed on the visuals before them. The smug tilt in their posture had straightened. One of them adjusted their collar unnecessarily. Another tapped at a datapad that was clearly turned off. They didn't speak. For a species that had long proclaimed themselves the pinnacle of galactic physics, watching an infant species demonstrate what they hadn't even theorized, it was a silent, bitter pill to swallow. The aliens stared at the bridge. Tishal whispered, "And to think, we left it alone because we feared it. We thought the danger was the instability." Greaves exhaled. "The real danger," she said, "is that we might get bored." The central chamber of the Galactic Science Assembly, currently in emergency session, hung in neutral orbit over Velax Prime. A vast amphitheatre of layered galleries shimmering with the presence of 100 species, it pulsed faintly with the tension of unanswered questions. Delegates murmured in dozens of tongues and frequencies, uneasy beneath the brilliant white dome that had witnessed centuries of incremental progress, and never, until now, revolution. The Assembly had not called an emergency session in over 400 years, not since the Veil Exodus, when 6 suns vanished in synchrony and the cosmos itself trembled. Now every seat was filled. Holoproxies flickered where bodies couldn't travel fast enough. Tension radiated in waves, and the delegates murmured like a storm about to break. Chancellor Threk Vor stood at the centre, claws clenched behind his back, voice amplified through the hall's crystalline audio mesh. "Delegates of the Assembly," he growled, "I bring before you a matter of dire consequence. The humans, yes, the fledgling species from Sol, have constructed what was long believed to be physically impossible, a stable mobile warp bridge between twin singularities." The murmuring turned into uproar. "They broke the inviolate laws of gravity. They weaponized space-time. No one in the galaxy thought it was possible. That is insane." A high-pitched whine cut through the chaos. Tishal, ancient and respected, stepped forward from the Kavalran delegation. "Let us not begin with panic," he said, his voice sharp and measured. "Let us begin with understanding." A hush fell. "I witnessed the bridge. I ran my own tests. The humans have done what we believed could not be done, not through brute force, but through cleverness, trial, and sacrifice. And when I asked them why, do you know what they said? Silence. He looked around. They said, because someone told us it was impossible. Across the telepathic band, a ripple of uncertainty passed through the eyelith. Their once cohesive mental tone fractured briefly, like a crystal struck by doubt. They speak in defiance, came a wavering projection. No, another replied. They speak in truth and in potential. A long pause. Then the Varnathi scientist spoke in a liquid voice. That is not a reason. They endanger the entire sector. That is madness. Tashal inclined his head. Perhaps, or perhaps it is what moves the stars. 3 days had passed since the announcement. At the human embassy on Velax Prime, the atmosphere was electric. The halls buzzed with a strange mix of frantic coordination and stunned disbelief, like the quiet before a thunderclap that never quite ends. Security had doubled. Requests for interviews, technology access, and diplomatic briefings flooded in from every corner of the assembly. The human embassy was buzzing, not in a metaphorical sense, literally buzzing. Protest drones from the Solari Hover Chorus had been circling the building for hours, projecting rhythmic disapproval in subsonic waves that made the walls vibrate and a few junior staff nauseous. Inside, Samantha Greaves sat at a polished conference table, sipping tea. She looked like a woman at peace. That only unnerved the ambassadors more. "You must dismantle the bridge," hissed the Solari envoy, antennae quivering. Greaves tilted her head. "Why? Because the implications are catastrophic. This bridge could create unmonitored superhighways across restricted sectors. It undermines every mutual defense treaty. You could transport entire fleets undetected." "Could," she said. "We didn't." "But you could," shouted Chancellor Threkvor. Greaves leaned forward. "And you could turn a quantum shear engine into a planet killer. But you didn't. Why? Because you weren't interested in that. You found other uses. Logistics, infrastructure, we're the same." "You are not," roared Threkvor. "You humans are a chaos species. You gamble with physics." She met his eyes. "Only when someone tells us we can't." A soft hum pulsed from the back of the room. Tashal's crystalline frame shimmered gently as he approached. "I've reviewed the mathematical models," he said. "Their work holds, but there's something more that we must understand, something I think only she can explain." He turned to Greaves. "Why risk so much?" he asked quietly. "Why not stop when the first singularity test imploded?" She was silent for a long time. "Because every species in this room," she finally said, "looks at the universe and asks, what are the rules? And then you build your civilizations inside those lines." She stood and paced slowly. "But humans, we ask what's the penalty for breaking them, and what happens if we don't get caught?" The room went very still. Tashal blinked slowly. "You speak as if rules are suggestions." "They are," she said, "until someone breaks them and redefines what's possible." Until now, the Varnathi had been silent. For a species not known for restraint, especially after mocking the very concept of a warp bridge mere days earlier, their silence had been deafening. Their delegation, clad in layered indigo robes laced with fractal threaded patent sigils, sat still beneath the assembly's crystalline dome. A cluster of eyes from dozens of delegates kept drifting their way, expectant, almost hungry. Finally, one moved. Delegate Vorken rose with the slow precision of someone very used to being listened to. The Varnathi scientist, whose name was etched into thousands of transit systems and whose algorithms powered much of the assembly's logistical backbone, folded his hands behind his back. His voice, when it came, was soft, controlled, and laced with venom. "If this bridge is not dismantled," he began, "the Varnathi Accord will be forced to submit formal charges, patent violations, unregulated interspatial displacement, breach of economic protocols, if no resolution is found through diplomatic channels." His tone sharpened like a scalpel. "Other options will be discussed." The threat was wrapped in official language, but the meaning was unmistakable. Whispers stirred. The orbital intellect's drone pulsed in warning orange. The Solari envoy twitched their antennae in agitation. Greaves didn't stand. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she looked at Vorken the way one might study a rusted gear, fascinated, a little pitying. "I understand what's really behind your threats, Vorken," she said, voice still low, almost gentle. "It's not about patents or protocol. It's fear." He blinked, the lines of his face tightening. "You're not afraid we broke the rules," she continued. You're afraid we broke your monopoly, your designs, your technologies, all rendered obsolete by something you swore was impossible. The air seemed to thin. I know what it cost you, she added. Centuries of dominance, fortunes, prestige, and now an infant species just leapfrogged over all of it, with tools we built in scrapyards and minds your people laughed at. Vorken opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Greaves finally rose to her feet. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. I would advise against threatening the species that made the impossible real, a species that refuses to give up. She stepped closer, voice softening in a way that only made it more terrifying. Because if there's one thing humans are exceptionally good at, it's doing whatever we must when someone tells us no. A pause, especially when we know they're just scared of what happens when the answer is yes. The chamber was silent. Even the protest drones outside seemed to hesitate. Vorken sat back down, his robes suddenly feeling much heavier. Greaves didn't smile. She didn't need to. Later that night on the human embassy rooftop, Charles joined her again, watching the stars. You know they're terrified of you now. Greaves chuckled. We built a bridge, not a bomb. He made a soft crystalline chime that might have been laughter. You built a principle, and that's more dangerous. She glanced at you. You're not afraid. Oh, I am, he said, but also curious. You humans burn so fast, but maybe that's why you see further. Greaves smiled. Want to know the part that's going to make them really nervous? Tishal's facets twinkled. There's more? Oh, yes. She pulled a small tablet from her coat and tapped it. A new diagram appeared. It showed a lattice of microbridges, a network of singularity-threaded gates, some anchoring across galaxies. This is what we're building next. Charles stared in silence. Threaded transit across intergalactic voids, she continued. We won't need jump drives anymore. No relativity lag, instantaneous routing through high-density mass anchors. Charles' voice was barely a whisper. This would make you the center of all logistics, of every trade route, of warfare. You would own the spine of the galaxy. Greaves looked skyward. Or maybe just make it smaller. He turned to her. Do you understand what they will do to stop this? She nodded. They'll debate. They'll try sanctions, maybe sabotage. Doesn't matter. Why? Because someone will stand on a dais and declare, this cannot be done. And when they do, she smiled, that's our starting pistol. Somewhere at a galactic council closed session, Tashal stood in front of the most powerful beings in known space. Behind him, the projection of the bridge lattice pulsed with impossible light. They will not stop, he said simply. Not because they are hostile, but because they are curious. Every time we say you can't, they will ask why not, and then they will try. Silence. Finally a voice from the shadows, one of the ancient ones. Then what do we do? Charles folded his hands. We either try to stop them and fail, or we follow and learn.